World Bank President David Malpass has warned that some countries might struggle to avoid a recession. South Africa currently facing an ailing economy, fuel hikes, a rising cost of living and shortage of power. What should be done if the worst happens? For more on this, we're joined by Chief Economist at Efficient Group, Dawie Roodt. Dawie, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. We are now in stage 6 of load shedding. From 4 p.m. in the country, Eskom announcing a short while ago. And in a short while from now, in about 8 minutes or so, the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, is set to brief the media and about the latest challenges at Eskom. And then you hear the word recession. I mean, surely we are headed there.
Yeah, well, good afternoon to you. Well, it really depends on what you mean by the word recession. I can maybe just mention is that I've made some rough calculations, and it's impossible to calculate these sort of things. But based on my rough calculations, the South African economy simply cannot grow faster than about 2% sustainably. It's just because we don't have enough electricity. But those calculations were based on a worst-case scenario for stage 4. Blackout, like what we currently experience, well, we experienced before what happened today. So I did not include stage 6 blackout or load shedding. So I am afraid with the stage 6 load shedding becoming a frequent occurrence, I'm afraid it's very unlikely for us to get as much as 2% economic growth, perhaps closer to about 1.5%. So without a doubt, the lack of electricity is keeping a lid on economic growth. On top of all of that, there are some new variables that's making life quite difficult for just about everybody on this planet. Things like, for example, very high commodity prices, which is not all bad for South Africa because we are major commodity exporters. But commodity prices is pushing up inflation, amongst others. And of course, that is very bad for especially for the poor. And the Reserve Bank is trying to counter inflation by increasing interest rates, which will undermine economic growth in the short term, at least. So yes, I am very much afraid that economic growth is going to be very weak and the possibility of a recession is getting bigger by the day. The only consolation, if it is any, is that there are most countries or many countries in the world are experiencing exactly the same, and many countries in the world are already experiencing very high levels of hunger, in fact. The most recent example is Chad, that announced that they will be getting some special aid from the United Nations. So yes, things are really quite tough out there.
So it's going to become harder for us if we stay frequently on stage 6, for example, you're saying, to get that economic growth that we need of around 2%, maybe, as you say, and we won't avoid recession if we go down this road.
Yeah, you know, economists always try to make an easy concept as complicated and difficult as possible. Now, a recession is a good example of that because somebody thought of labeling a recession 2 subsequent quarters of negative economic growth. I disagree with that. I don't think that is necessarily a good definition for a recession. As far as I'm concerned, a recession is an economy where people are getting poorer. That's, as far as I'm concerned, a recession. Or where the economy is growing well below potential for a long period of time. That is, as far as I'm concerned, also a recession. Mm-hmm. Now, if you use those definitions as a recession, then we have been in a recession for most of the past 10 years. Because on a per capita basis, most of the past 10 years, we've been getting poorer in South Africa. Our most important resource, labor, we're just not using that. So those are all signs of a recession in any event. So I'm afraid that, 2 negative quarters does not necessarily tell you the whole picture. If an economy like the United States, if they go into a recession, it's not a big thing because their unemployment levels are down at 3%, for example. So it's not going to hurt them. But an economy like South Africa, if the economy actually contracts, or even if the economy it doesn't even contract, it keeps on growing at a pedestrian rate like what we're currently seeing, poverty will keep on going up and very high levels of unemployment will go up even further. So I think we have been in a recession.
Yeah, so we've been in trouble for a long time. Who's to blame, Dawie?
Well, there are many things to be blamed. I think recently we can talk about the high oil price. We can blame the war in Central Europe, and we can blame all sort of things globally. And certainly those are some of the reasons why the economy is in trouble. But for South Africa, there's only mostly one reason why and who we should be blaming for this, and this is the South African government. I know you're going to talk to Mr. Pravin Gordhan just after you've spoken to me, and Pravin Gordhan himself is to be blamed for the mess in which we are in. You can just look at the fiscal accounts, what happened while he was the Minister of Finance. You can look what is happening to the state-owned enterprises when he was the Minister of Finance and now that he's the Minister of State-owned Enterprises. Of course, not only him, it is the whole government. Read the Zondo Commission and you know why we are where we are. We've got a government that's caused absolutely immense, horrible damage to the South African economy. They should be blamed.
I won't be talking to Minister Pravin Gordhan. He's going to be addressing the media. So we'll be taking it live to hear what he's going to say about the challenges at Eskom. But you make an interesting point that the government of this country is largely to blame in terms of the policies, the wrong kind of economic policies that they affected. And somebody like Pravin Gordhan, who was head of Treasury some years ago, maybe they could have made better choices in terms of the budget of the state and all of this. But we are here now. So how do we prevent? Is it too late to prevent the headwinds of a recessionary nature?
I think what we have to understand, first of all, and we have to prepare for this. We have, like we all know, weak economic growth, high levels of unemployment, high levels and the rising levels of poverty. In fact, there are children going to bed hungry in South Africa. In fact, children are dying in South Africa of malnutrition. I mean, this is a shame. This is a shame for South Africans. Our children going to bed hungry. But I'm afraid in this environment, we are currently seeing energy prices going up, the petrol price, for instance. We see food prices going up. And this is a tinderbox. This is a toxic mix of things that can go horribly wrong in South Africa. I'm not predicting anything like what happened last year, but this is not a nice situation to be in. And our political leaders must be aware of this. They must be able to act, if necessary, to make sure that calm remains in South Africa, because in the environment is a very unstable environment. I think that's the first thing that we have to understand. Unfortunately, the politicians are so busy with their infighting at the moment that I'm not so sure that we can really trust our political leaders to be able to manage a volatile situation if that should occur in South Africa. So it's easy to fix the economic side. We know how to fix the economic side. You can ask all economists. You can ask a first-year economic student how to fix the economics. The problem in South Africa is politics. We need to fix the politics because we don't have political leadership. They're fighting one another while Rome is burning. They're playing fiddle on the roof, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah, so there's too much of that lack of focus on the real issue. If the focus was on fixing the economy, for example, and as the Auditor General, if the focus was on making sure the municipalities are well-resourced and they're doing the right things, they would be performing today. And you cannot have performance unless you give it that proper or appropriate focus.
In the case of the municipalities, a simple answer is just appoint people that can actually do the job. Just appoint people that's not going to steal the resources of the municipalities. So that's all. Don't appoint cadres, appoint competent people. That's all you need to do. But explain that to the ANC that's been doing this for how many years now and getting away with that. So, yeah, those are the sort of things that we need to fix. And in the meantime, as we know, there's so much infighting, and it's not political infighting between various political parties I'm talking about. I'm talking about political infighting within the ANC itself. We know of cases where the ANC are murdering each other in order to get positions. It's that bad. Now imagine an economy being run by a government that's doing so much damage to them, to their own people. I'm talking about to their party members. Now I'm very concerned about the quality of our political leadership.
Are you concerned about the future?
Of course, there's always something to look out for. There are always silver linings for South Africa. Like I've mentioned, the commodity prices are going up quite nicely. We are exporting very nicely. The rand is doing an excellent job at the moment. Lesetja Kanyagwa at the South African Reserve Bank, he's acting by tightening monetary policy. That's the right thing to do. So those are institutions that are still working.
Okay, Dawie, I did warn you before we went on air that I might cut you. We've had our chat. Thank you very much for your time and analysis. We have to go now live to hear